The thing that I wish people knew, and I would say from a perspective of society, I think this is like a narrative thing that people say, is like we have this impression that like manufacturing is like, you know, the assembly line, right?
Right.
And like everything is really, you know, monotonous, and you just put something here and you know, screw on this and you do this, and it's like, and that's your job, is you just watch this line go perfectly. And everyone as a business wants to say, yes, what we manufacture, we have a great system, it works perfectly, raws all the time. That's not true.
This episode is brought to you by Omega Cool NanoCut 300, the next-gen metalworking fluid. It's bio-based, water-based, and safer, with longer tool life and zero burn or odor. It beats it big names out on cost and performance. It'll save on tool life. I mean, from what I'm hearing, you get about 40% longer tool life with the Omega Cool NanoCut 300. Catch them live at IMTS or reach out to me for a sample. Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer. If you're new here, this show is stupid simple. I sit down with the people who live and work in the manufacturing industry, and we talk about how they got here, why they've stayed, what they've built, and the pride that they carry every single day. Before we get into it, I'm going to be upfront with you. This episode was recorded as part of a paid partnership with a company called Structify. Those of you who have been around for a while know that I only partner with people whose story I truly believe in, and Ronak is one of them. But you deserve to know this at the top of the show before going into everything. I caught up with today's guest in person out at ATD Precision Manufacturing right here in Phoenix, Arizona, on about a 120-degree day of Arizona summer. His name is Ronak Gandhi, and he's the founder of Structify. Ronak grew up in Fort Worth, watched his grandfather build a 30-year career in manufacturing after coming to this country in the 60s, and left an isolating corporate job in New York to go build something for the people he calls the backbone of the country. Structify helps manufacturers find real ROI for AI and capture the knowledge that walks out the door when a key person retires. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Ronak Gandhi. Let's get into it. What's your name?
Name is Ronak Gandhi.
Ronak, where are you from?
Fort Texas, but I live in New York City now.
Okay, awesome. What was it like growing up in Fort Worth?
Obviously, you only have one point of reference, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's very much like a community town. So you get to like have a lot of people you spend a lot of time with. People always generally ask me, it's like, what's the difference between like New York City and Fort Worth? And so I always kind of tell the story of like 2 Memorial Days. So Memorial Day in Fort Worth, you know, we do a barbecue, you know, as a family, have a bunch of family friends over, you know, family members, you know, gathers like, you know, 50 plus people, you know, in your backyard, cooking up a storm, you know, everyone arrives at noon, you're just talking, people telling stories, people laughing, whatever. And like all of a sudden you look at the clock and it's like, crap, it's dinner time. And, you know, what are we going to do? And then a bunch of our friends will like go up to their trucks. They'll bring these big coolers out and be like, oh, we brought dinner, we'll make it. And so they just start cooking in your kitchen and on your grill, like making dinner for everyone. And then, you know, same thing, rinse, repeat. And then it's like, you know, midnight or 1 a.m. It's like, oh crap, where'd the time go? And so that's like Fort Worth, right? It's just like, you know, you hang out, the time kind of sinks away. And in New York for Memorial Day, it's like, okay, I have these plans of, you know, brunch at 11 a.m. here. And then I have to be, you know, downtown at, you know, 2 p.m. with this group of people and whatever. So it's like, you do a lot of different things and you're very like itineraried, but it's, the like advantages, you guys see a lot more folks, you know, but it's like very like, okay, we're doing this really cool thing and then this really cool thing and this really cool thing and this really cool thing. So it's like, you're hustling and itineraried, whereas Fort Worth's a lot more like laissez-faire, like freeform, just hang out.
Got it. Awesome. So Ronak, take me back to the moment you knew manufacturing needed what you're building right now over at Structify. What did you see that you think other people were missing?
It's a really good question. I think there was like, I say for every kind of decision, there's always the personal and the professional reason. And we'll kind of, I think, get into the personal bit of it later. But the like long and short of that side is a lot of my family worked in manufacturing when my grandpa first came to this country in the 60s. his job that he got was at a fish processing facility and distributor.
Okay.
And so they handled a lot of like cod and salmon from like Iceland and like the Nordic countries and like brought it over. And just like hearing the stories that he had kind of left a lasting impression on me and like, the family. And he was there for 30 years, like, first job in the States and then retired there. So there's kind of like that piece in the back of my mind. But the second part, for personal reason, and you'll get into this, but it's like way more, I think, fulfilling to kind of work for folks that are doing real stuff, like the backbone of the country, like making a huge difference, as opposed to just like, tech companies in Silicon Valley. The real, I think, answer for like why I knew there was something here was, I feel like a lot of the manufacturing leaders that, I talked to and kind of met over the past 2-3 years were always saying like, hey, I know, two things, like, I know AI is going to be transformational for my business, but I don't really know how, but I know there's something there. And so I think like hearing that over and over again was a key part. And then people would always say, man, it's really good to see, a young person like yourself that's like super engaged and leaned in and cares and is asking questions. And, it would be like, do you have friends? It's like, you go, we do a project or something and, you meet the team and they're like, this is awesome. Like, do you have friends? And like over and over again, it was like, and what that really says, like, are there people like you that, we can also like work with? Like, are you kind of like a unicorn or is this a thing? And so that's kind of when it clicked for me. It was like, okay, people are both really excited to have like folks of our generation, in shops, helping out in whatever way we can, but also taking some of the stuff that maybe like we take for granted as far as like being digitally native and stuff, and then saying, hey, this is how it applies to y'all. And here's kind of some of the things that we would do, whether it's data, whether it's AI, whether it's, technology, IT, like all of these things are super valuable. And I think having that kind of like, exciting kind of engagement between the kind of the generation of like manufacturing leaders in our generation, that dialogue, I think, being exceptionally positive is what led us to really kind of double down and focus on it.
Cool. Awesome. So tell us that origin story. Tell us the history, the background, your journey to be sitting in this seat today in Phoenix, Arizona in 120 degrees. What's your journey been, man, to get to this point?
I appreciate it. So I think the most like relevant parts, obviously I was telling you, I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yep.
It's definitely like left a lasting impression on me about like being just like, small kind of town feel, right? Like being super community oriented. And so, I went to college on the East Coast, and when I went out, my first job was really kind of doing a lot of stuff as like the data guy of the company. And it was this like massive skyscraper that I'd go into work in New York City. And I was like, oh, what a great opportunity. And, for whatever reason, just like wasn't clicking for me, right? Of like, being like one person that walks into the skyscraper every day was super isolating.
Yeah.
And, it didn't feel right. And so kind of the idea of like, okay, I want to do something, with like a team of folks that like where people care, where, relationships are, something that people invest in.
Yeah.
And you get to spend time with folks that matter the most and people that like, it's a two-way street, right? They care about you and you care about them. I think that was like the personal reason behind. So I kind of knew that. At the same time, a lot of the folks at the company were like, oh, we're hearing AI and data used in the same sentence a ton. Ronak, data. Do you also know AI? You want to kind of help lead some of our AI initiatives. And what I found was like, okay, I've, leaning into this, looking at this company, looking at all the kind of clients we're working with, all the different folks out there. And I found, all right, getting everyone's data and information into one place is like the Herculean task that's like really, really hard to do before you even go and are able to, implement whatever super flashy AI system. And I think a lot of folks at the time were trying to jump the gun and go, hey, here's what AI can do for you. But I always said like, hey, people know what they want to do, right? There's like this translation barrier, almost like a language barrier of like, if some people don't know what they want, right? You just have to take that language of like data and make it accessible and easy for people to actually go and make the change that they want to. And so that's kind of the thing that was that founding insight of like, all right, there's something here. And then we'll realize like, who does this mean the most for and who do we want to work with? Taking that as kind of like two principles of like, all right, the people that, matter the most that like we really care about, especially, I'm from Fort Worth, my co-founder's from Chicago. We're very much biased towards folks that are kind of in those areas. And so it's like, we want to work with people that kind of reflect a little bit of that upbringing, but also kind of like want to invest in that relationship. And for better or for worse, a lot of, from what I found, business on the coast ends up being pretty transactional.
Yeah.
And so having that relationship was super key. And then also from like a need perspective, found that people were really open to having that conversation about, hey, I have this vision for how AI can change things and how I want to change up my operations or our finance department or our sales department. Can you help us get there? And so from that way, I mean, it just kind of naturally kind of lean into that more and focus on a lot of that work. And the other thing I'll say is like having our team go on site and, have these bunch of young people doing work in shops and, helping build systems. People get fired up about it. Like,
Absolutely.
like, I can't tell you, like, the projects we do, it's like people are like, man, this manufacturer I work with, they're so badass. Like, I'm so excited. Like, they bolt out of bed in the morning, like, I can't wait to go to work today. And like, that's awesome, right? And like, it's kind of uncommon if you think about like, a lot of folks in our generation, like, don't really bolt out of bed and like physically go to, a shop to work. They like open their laptop, maybe sometimes in bed and, log on.
Yep. I think that there's a lot of pride that comes from being able to stand back at the end of the day, to your point, right? And look at something that you've made. I built houses before I got into the manufacturing world. I still drive by those houses, show them to my family, right? And like, I made that. My
That's
family's
awesome.
like, yeah, I know, Dad. I know. Like, you've told us, right? And so I think, because I've never walked into a machine shop like this and not met somebody who thought they were the best machinist or the best welder, right? Everybody's the best welder, the best machinist. There's a lot of pride that comes from that. But it's a different mindset, to your point, from the world that you were in before you came here. Do you think that your grandfather's journey that he took in this industry helped you understand the people that you serve today with Structify?
100%. I mean, it's not just like my grandpa's in the industry. There's a lot of other folks that kind of, family or I grew up with, and also kind of had the privilege to have a lot of mentors in the space and kind of, be able to be hands-on and, go to shops, do a lot of kind of like, meeting folks, working with folks, doing projects. So definitely part of that. But, I will attribute it to like my grandpa's story a ton of like, it's always left a lasting impression for me. And so kind of you think about how kind of we could recreate that experience for a lot of folks that, to be honest, it seems like kind of need that, right? People are feeling like, all right, these companies are leaving us behind. They don't care. And that's it because I think people are looking at the super, big name brand companies, particularly, you think about like tech or whatever. And, they don't really care about the people that work there. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And like people that work there don't necessarily always care about their work.
Yep.
And to kind of go back to this idea of like, wanting to be at a place for 30 years, right? Like building a community around it, having them give back to you. I mean, great example of this was like they, would take, when my dad was in high school, I think it was, they were like, hey, you've never been out, to that part of the world where we grab the fish. You've never seen it in action. Why don't you and your son come on one of the boats, for a couple weeks this summer and actually see how I guess not the sausage, but how the fish gets made, right?
Yeah.
Or the fish gets fished. And I mean, that's not something that if you're a big company looking at the bottom line that you'd be like, yeah, this makes sense. It doesn't from a financial perspective,
Right.
but it makes all the sense in the world from a people and culture perspective. And so like, that's the kind of thing that I feel like, I want to, work with folks that think like that. And I want people of my generation to see that it still exists out there because it does.
That's awesome. You're a smart dude. You've built something really cool, you and your co-founder. Walk us through the decision-making process to tackle something in such a physical industry that may be a little bit slower to adopt tech versus following the easy path of Silicon Valley and finding something that may be more repeatable or more sellable to the masses. Why did you focus on this?
Great question. Very much appreciate it. And I feel like for me and Alex, there's a lot of like, do what feels right, kind of do what kind of your gut says. And, there's always kind of reasons behind it. A lot of the reason that I think our gut was in it, if I'm being totally honest, Silicon Valley sucks, man. Like, actually, like, it's awful. And, like, there's certainly some really great, smart folks out there doing great things. But from, like, a working with folks together, like, they will kick you to the street at the drop of a hat. They, aren't interested in forming a relationship. It's a one-way street, right? Like, it's all about, if you're a Silicon Valley company, what can you do for me, right?
Yep.
And like I said, like it's for me growing up, loyalty, right, and integrity, huge values. And so I will say, like, we've done a lot of work with Silicon Valley companies. A lot of those customers are great that we're still with today, but a lot of what we found was for a large majority of that space, and I'm going to include New York City in this too. It's very flaky.
Yeah.
It's not about loyalty. People aren't going to stick with you through kind of tough times. And you think about stories of like, the industry, hey, the supplier, there's a guy, I was talking with, pardon this short digression here.
No, this is exactly why we ask these questions, man. I love stories.
So supplier was about a week late on a part for this guy, super critical, and like they missed their deadlines. And the supplier came in person to the shop and apologized to the team and said, I know that we screwed up and I'm really sorry about this. And I will let you know that this will not happen again, because while I make one mistake once, right, second time's not going to happen, right?
Yep.
And they continue to work with them.
Wow.
They didn't ditch him. They said, this guy is making an effort out here. He cares, right? And that's the kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, like, you've done business with them for 15 years and, they make a mistake, and that mistake is costly. Like don't get me wrong, but that person's going to remember it, right? And they're going to remember, hey, they picked me, to keep on doing it because they know I won't make that mistake again.
Yep.
And so like, that's the kind of thing where it's like loyalty, integrity, gratitude, just from a values perspective, it aligns a ton. What I'll also say is, to your point, yes, it's maybe a slow moving industry, but I haven't found it to be as slow as I think people say. I think it's like, if you come in with the right kind of like, hey, we're here to meet folks, we're here to like, do good work, and, we're not trying to like slam people over the head with the sales pitch, you realize you're playing the long game. And it's a very different game than like Silicon Valley, blast everyone with a bunch of emails and phone calls, and all of a sudden you can make $1 million, like a quick buck. Like, not in it for that, right?
Yeah.
You're in it from day one. It's always been about people, right? The reason that we left to start this was about people, right? Building our team, focusing on, getting smart, hardworking young people who care about their craft. It's about people. So I think as a lot of things get automated, particularly kind of in a sales way, everyone's like saying, oh, you're getting blasted with all this AI written email. The thing that matters is going to be that genuine human connection. So this is kind of a long cry from like why I decided to go. It was like, you choose to do the harder thing because it's more meaningful. And because at the end of the day, you wake up and you feel a lot prouder about the work you do. And to be honest, and I don't know how much I need to publicize this, but like the people we work with in supply chain kick ass, man. They're awesome people. They're so cool. They've got a lot of great stories, and I smile a lot more when I'm with them.
That's awesome. I love that. So it's a very hidden industry from the general public, right? It's been, and there are 100 reasons why it's hidden. We, as a country, made decisions 50 plus years ago to make it so it's easier to manufacture things overseas.
Yep.
Then we told kids that there weren't futures in manufacturing. So we lost a lot of the societal contract about being proud to work in this industry and to know what goes into working in this industry, right? If you were to ask somebody in the 70s and 80s, how is this part made? A lot more people knew how the products that they use every day were made, right? It was just part of the societal contract. What do you feel that people outside the industry don't, that they should?
It's a great question. I think like from like a narrative perspective, I would encourage everyone, whether that's like through kind of like a career fair or something, like go to a shop, like see how something is made. It's funny that like we're surrounded by things that are manufactured and we don't think about it all the time, right?
Yeah.
But if you stop and like look at a sandwich you're eating, right? Each of those things, right? Slice of bread had to be made somewhere, had to be shipped somewhere within conditions, make sure that it's good. There was packaging that actually went into it too. What about all the mills that are processing it? Those had to be made somewhere. And then all of a sudden your mind explodes like, holy crap, right? This is nuts. And I think like the thing that I wish people knew, and I'll say from a perspective of society, I think this is like a narrative thing that people say, is like, we have this impression that like manufacturing is like the assembly line, right?
Right.
And like everything is really, monotonous, and you just put something here and you screw on this and you do this. And it's like, and that's your job, is you just watch this line go perfectly. And everyone as a business wants to say, yes, what we manufacture, we have a great system. It works perfectly. Runs all the time. That's not true.
Right.
Right. There are problems every day, from like the fire alarm going off in here, right? To like, people sprinting down, and like those problems are what makes the industry exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like the valve breaks here on the nitrogen system. Holy crap, we got to get this thing fixed now. You're thinking on your feet, you're problem solving, maybe you're jerrying something, you're calling up people. Like, you got to get stuff done because things need to, go out to shipping at the end of the day. And those problems are what make the industry exciting, what light people up. Because that is, I think, the piece that, from a narrative perspective, people hide, right? You don't want people to see your problems.
Yeah.
Right? Everything runs perfectly. It runs smoothly. But the problems are kind of alluring, right? That's why you want to go to work every day, is because that makes things exciting. So I think from, the perspective of manufacturing is not perfect, right? It's not mundane. There's lots of problems. There's lots of problems to solve. There's still a ton of efficiencies to gain. And the part that I love about it is that there's opportunity 360 degrees around you, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just so much success out there for everyone.
Absolutely.
So success is not limited there for sure.
But I love it. So shifting gears a little bit, what do you think the traditional tech industry, the one that sucks up in Silicon Valley, what do you think that they've gotten wrong about this industry to date?
It's a great question. I would say there's probably like 2 or 3 key things. One is like, you cannot be working with manufacturing if you're sitting at your desk on the coast, man. Like, you have to be on site. You have to be on the road. It is hard. It is long. It is grueling, but it is worth it, right? I mean, I'm on the road probably like most days, most weeks. Like this week I was Albany, Kansas City, Grand Rapids, now here in Phoenix, right? Week before that, what was it? It was Milwaukee, Detroit, Louisiana. And here's the thing, these places are awesome.
Yeah.
Like everyone kind of like craps on like, Pittsburgh or Lafayette, Louisiana, or, Grand Rapids, Michigan. This place is rock, dude. I was in Kansas City this week. Awesome time, great people, really good food, beautiful city of fountains, like genuinely.
Yeah.
And so I think people kind of overlook a lot of that. And they're like, well, I don't need to go, I don't really want to go. I want to sit at my desk.
They're called flyover states for a reason, right? Because a lot of the people on the coast, they go coast to coast, and they forget about the heartland, quote unquote.
To your point, there's a sign in the Kansas City airport, and I remember this thing. It's like the mayor of Kansas City with like the skyline and this beauty in the background. You see these hardworking people there in the industries, and it says in big bold letters, "We are not a flyover state." Because
I love that.
It's true. So like that's like piece one is like you got it. You can't treat it that way, right?
Yeah.
You got it. People, right? Treat everyone with dignity, treat everyone with respect, and like these places are awesome. You should want to go there. We have 50 states in the union. Like, if you're not everyone has the means to do it, but if you have the chance to, you should try to see all 50. They're beautiful in their own different ways. The other thing I'll say for kind of tech companies is you can't, manufacturers from the outside, all right, hey, this is a precision CNC shop, right? This is a metal forger. They might seem kind of the same. They're very different when you kind of go and you see them and how they run and how they operate. Everyone's unique. And so you can't just say, oh, I'm going to have this one solution that's going to, this one piece of software that's going to work for everybody, because it's not, right? The people are making compromises and trade-offs, even with, ERPs, which are critical.
Yeah.
And so I think like that's the other thing people miss is like, you have to go and understand how things work. You have to understand that everybody is different and treat them that way. And there's no like better or worse. It's just, they're getting stuff done at the end of the day in a different fashion due to a different set of circumstances or a different history or a different product, different customer. And those nuances are what make each manufacturer awesome and what make them great. But it also means that one solution isn't going to just work off the shelf for everyone.
Yeah. So it's no surprise we're in a workforce crisis. What habits or decisions or policies do you think contributed most to the crisis that we're facing right now?
It's a really good question. And there's so many. I mean, you could just list it off. But I mean, from a narrative perspective, we are kind of the victims of, our own doing, right? Like to your point earlier, it's like we as a country, we're trying to outsource a ton of stuff to specifically China, right? And from the manufacturing perspective. And what we said was, okay, manufacturing is dull, dirty, and dangerous. So let them over there go do it, and we're going to do something else. But that's not really the case, right? There's, manufacturing is far from that. It, kicks butt. And so we want to like shift that narrative to say it's actually really, really cool, right? Yeah. The things that we make, right? The machines you work with, things that you get to say you do. Hey, I use lasers to weld metal parts together every day. That's pretty sick, right? Yeah. So I think like there's a little bit of that, and that kind of came at the same time as this narrative, like, hey, everybody has to go to college, right? Everybody has to, go through this set way of doing life to have success. And the answer is there's not one path to success, and almost in many ways, like college doesn't make sense for a lot of folks. And so we're, fighting these two narrative battles at the same time, right? About, okay, we're going to not glamorize manufacturing. And so everyone's like, well, I don't want to go work there. And then at the same time, everyone's like, all right, well, I need to go and, take on a college degree, a ton of debt, work this great kind of white collar job. And not to say that's not great for all folks, but that's not the path that, is going to lead to a ton of success. I mean, certainly, you're seeing like, student debt rising and the loans and everything. But the other piece I'll say is I kind of wish that we had leaned more into kind of apprenticeships and co-ops. I say this every now and then, but I think Northeastern University in Boston has a great program where if you want to go to college, you have to do, I think it's 6 months to a year of working at a real place. And that's a requirement to graduate. Wow. And I kind of wish that was integrated more in, not just like secondary school, but also, a part of high school of like, hey, you've got all these summers to do things. And yes, if you're in Texas, you're probably playing football over the summer, but like, find something, let's try to find ways to like get young people into, an apprenticeship, shadowing someone, understanding an industry, getting that experience. Is it going to be cost effective for, business at large? Maybe not. But what I'll say is that helps you, future-proof your business because you're bringing people in that have experience and understanding. And I mean, Logan here's a great example, right? Like he knows so much. He has so much opportunity ahead of him. The guy's going to kick butt.
Already is
kicking butt, right? He's going to go kick more butt. Yeah. But it's because like he took that initiative. ATD was super generous and hospitable and say, hey, we're going to train you. And, us trading you is only a win for everyone, right? Yep. It's not about, dollar signs and zeros, right? It's about people, right? Yep. So I think there's a lot of that sort of framing that is going to go into it. But those are the things that I would say probably two leading reasons why. And lastly, kind of like a narrative thing, right? About like, we got to go and say, hey, how can we make manufacturing badass in the eye of the public, right? Yeah. Because it is.
It is. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So I think a lot of stories, I mean, you do a great job of this too, like highlighting stories of like things that are cool, interesting, showcasing the problems. Problems are interesting.
Absolutely.
And like stories. I can't remember. Did I tell you the story about the mixed metal manufacturer outside of Seattle?
No.
Okay. So I met this guy at a trade show. He's got, all these like metal parts lined up on, his booth. And I was talking with him and, I was like, oh, where are you based? Outside Seattle? Well, tell me about these parts, right? Like, a sign said in big bold letters, mixed metals. I was like, all right, so, what types of metals? How do you get them together? He's like, great question. What we do to get these metals to fuse together, right? It's, steel and titanium. Is we actually detonate a bomb to explode one metal into the other, which fuses them. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
That's
so
cool.
Their shop is open air outside of Seattle. I think it's like 2 or 3 hours outside. And it's in the middle of the woods. And they detonate bombs for a living to explode metals into each other to make mixed metal parts that go onto rockets and spaceships.
So cool.
Right? And it's like, how would you have thought about this? Well, it turns out, I think it was World War II, when a bunch of like bullets were getting hit onto the sides of tanks. For some of them, right velocity, right angle, right temperature, they would fuse to the tank. They wouldn't penetrate the tank. That's how they figured this out.
Awesome.
And I was like, dude, you got to lead with that. Like that needs to be, you need to have a poster in the back that's an explosion, because that's like these parts are awesome. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like you got to lead with that, man.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to get people fired up.
Yep. That's really cool. So we exist in an industry that the last time I checked had about a 65% failure rate when it comes to digital transformations, right? So we have, that's why I say slow moving to adopt digital technologies, right? And that has only gone up since AI has become a thing over the last 5 to 6 years. When ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, all of these LLMs really hit the market in mass, people don't really understand that we've been using AI 15 years since Siri came out and Alexa and like that's AI in reality, but people don't, it's not generating anything. So it's a different beast in these generative LLMs. But that number is staggering, that 65%.
Yeah.
So what do you think most AI companies get wrong about the manufacturing industry to lead to that 65% failure of adoption?
It's a good question. It's kind of funny you put it so well. Like, when you think about like AI and like, machine learning, manufacturing is one of the first industries that's applicable to for quality and inspection with computer vision, looking at a photo of, a part or a box saying, hey, does this meet all the standards we expect it to? And it's worked really, really well. They were the leaders, right, in machine learning and AI as an industry, right? I mean, robotics, I just can't see it, but there's like, this like robot right here. That's also, AI, right? But now we kind of think about like AI as like, all right, these like kind of like generative, I put in a question and I get a response back almost like I'm talking with a person. And that's kind of been something that's, lagged behind in adoption, which is kind of this interesting thing. So to your question, what are people doing wrong or what's been hard? It comes back to like, hey, I have these like, I'm a problem in search, or I was a solution in search of a problem, right? Like, hey, I've got this hammer and it's this, sales agent and I want to just find any nail that I can smack in to like make it work. And the answer is that that's not how things should actually work, right? You got to understand how things are working, right? And be intentional, take time. It's not like this is also kind of a thing that's maybe a flaw of the way a lot of startups run that are VC backed is you're looking for quick wins, right? Like these quick hits, adrenaline highs, easy wins. And so you're always trying to be like, all right, I got this, boom, easy to set up, boom, easy to set up, boom, right? But and that's what the venture-backed model says. The reality is that doesn't work here, right? It doesn't. You have to understand because everyone's different. You got these nuances. Jim in the back, right, knows, all right, I understand these things, because of this machine's intricacies. Ronak, over here might say, well, I know these suppliers are a little quirky in how they format things, so I'm going to do that. So you have to understand all these intricacies of how the business runs to actually go and set up a solution that's going to work. So rushing to the solution is kind of the problem. You got to be intentional. We say, hey, we're going to lay the foundation and give you a blueprint, blueprint being like, all right, here's how everything runs in the business. We create a map or a model of, how do you guys actually operate? And then once we understand that, we can then go and recommend and say, hey, here's the areas that I think, an AI remodel or a digital transformation is going to be the most impactful. And since we've laid that foundation, we make it easy for anyone to build.
Awesome. So I haven't asked you yet, purposely, what does Structify do? Grid is in specifically. What do you do for manufacturers?
It's a great question. So what we do at Structify is we help manufacturers find ROI for AI transformation, and then we give them the foundation to make it implemented. What we say is, all right, so we give you that blueprint. Where is AI going to be the most transformative for you? We lay that foundation so that way when you build that solution for that remodel, it's going to go seamlessly. It's going to be maintainable. It's not going to crumble as things change in the business. And the important piece of what we do is we say, hey, if we can't find you a path to ROI in 60 days, money back.
Really?
Yeah. So that's been a new thing for us. It's like, we're confident in what we do. We're going to put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, AI transformation is going to be critical for you. And if we can't find a way to make that happen for you, that's on us. That's not on you.
Wow. So you talk about blueprints, you talk about foundations and frameworks. How is what you do different than a manufacturer hiring an in-person consultant?
It's a great question. In many ways, it's not that different, right? You can think about you're getting access to top-tier AI talent with really strong resumes, and you're bringing in like top consultants to give you a recommendation for how can AI be transformative for your business and where can you save money or make more money. The two key differences that we have besides that is we'll actually go and set it up and like I said, lay that foundation, right? That's connecting all your different systems, an understanding of the business, all the context, that institutional knowledge. We're capturing that in a systematized way for you to execute on your vision.
Yeah.
And then what we say is we can say, all right, if you want to build the solution, we're giving your operators the ability with that foundation to go and build something for the business that's going to work because they have the know-how and they understand exactly what's going on. We're happy to build it on top of the foundation. You know, if they have someone that they trust, a partner or something, they can go build it as well. So we also tackle that building step. And then importantly, business model is totally different from a consultant, right? We're not going to charge people hourly rates out the wazoo. You know, we'll say, hey, we're confident what we're going to do. You know, you're going to know the cost up front.
Yeah.
And, you know, and something we're leaning into a lot more is we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to say, hey, we can't find you that ROI, or we can't find you that solution. Like I said, that's on us. That's not on you. So it's the two things right there. It's like, we'll do the building and, you know, lay the foundation so anyone can build it and it maintains into the future. So you don't need to hire consultants every year.
Yep.
But then also, you know, put our money where our mouth is.
But I also think, Ronak, that helps with that digital transformation adoption, right? So the key to change management, especially in digital transformation, is asking people how to solve problems, right?
Yeah.
And if you're giving a company the foundation and the ability for their employees to build something, you're inviting them to create real change within their organization.
Yeah.
And that creates a higher adoption in change management terms. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And like, I hadn't even really kind of conceived of it like this, but you get people excited and involved because a lot of the narrative around AI and, you know, the public is like, you look at big companies like Block and they're laying off 40% of the people because of AI. And that's not true in this industry. We need more people. We're not looking to cut people. We're trying to get more people in here.
Absolutely.
And so you make that conversation a lot easier because it's like, hey, let's work together. Let's build something super cool. And then you have folks that, you know, their eyes light up. They're like, holy crap. You know, we're working with a, you know, quality engineering department in San Antonio. And those guys love that stuff. Like their eyes light up. They're like, man, I didn't even realize we could do this. And could we also do that? Yeah, you could do that. Like, here, you know, it's all set up. And then it's like, it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And you get everyone engaged and excited about it. And to your point, that's the whole thing about change management. It's not like McKinsey comes to town and, you know, we're going to dictate from the top end. It's like, hey, we're evening the playing field, right? So we're, you know, democratizing a lot of this stuff. So it's not, you know, these highfalutin people, you know, from the coast coming in and being like, all right, you know, here's how we're going to make change. It's like, no, everyone, to your point, got to be part of the story together.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest misconception about change is that people resist it, that they hate it. In reality, people love change. If they didn't love change, we wouldn't have a travel industry. We wouldn't have a restaurant industry. We wouldn't have a fashion industry. We have those industries because people truly do love to change. They don't want to, I don't want to wear the same clothes as you. I mean, you dress very sharply, but I don't want to wear those same clothes. I want to wear my style, right? I want to go on vacation where I want to go. I want to go eat where I want to eat. The thing that those three industries have in common is people get to make that choice, and it's a very real choice they get to make.
Yeah.
If you're giving the companies the ability to bring people to the table to build that change that needs to happen versus McKinsey or some other consultant coming in and saying, hey, this is what's best for the company because I know better and I don't care what your solution is. You're solving more problems than just whatever is being fixed, right? Yeah. You're helping a culture change occur within the organization as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's super fair. And to your point about people being, you know, no one's hesitant to change. I mean, you think about this oftentimes. Manufacturing is an industry of change and transformation. You take in one set of things, and when it leaves, it's totally different. Industry of transformation. That's why people are excited. Like, the new robot comes here, everybody's eyes light up. They're super excited. The new nitrogen system, everyone's super, like, Jamie was, like, fired up about that, right?
Yep.
Huge changes. People are, like, you know, excited about it because it shakes things up. And new advances in technology, new advances in how to do things, people love that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to your point, there's a lot of that for what we're doing is like getting people to realize and be a part of that story, that culture shift.
So, I mean, a lot of companies talk about helping their clients find ROI. How do you help manufacturers find that tangible ROI instead of them just chasing AI for the sake of chasing AI because other CEOs or other presidents are doing that?
It's a great question. So I know I've said this is a great question so many times, but genuinely, these are all really good questions.
Well, appreciate that.
So we have a special part of our product that is kind of around building that blueprint. So it helps us, we connect to all the systems, we understand the business. And so once we have that lay of the land, right, you could see everything in front of you. You say, where is that transformation actually going to drive impact? And what's the like actual, dollar amount of impact it's going to drive, right? Based on these things that we're seeing. So you can actually go in and, we go in, we put in the elbow grease, right? We make that blueprint, we say, hey, given everything we're seeing here, I'm really confident that your quality department, there's a lot of opportunity over there, and maybe there's a lot of opportunity in your, APAR system, right? You guys are spending way too much time on it right now. So I think like that's a key piece is once you have all the information by doing that elbow grease, right? Talking with folks, understanding the business, connecting those systems, looking at the information, then you can go and make informed recommendation.
Got it.
And we've just set up a product, and part of our special sauce there is we can do all of that really fast, right?
Yeah.
So we can do that within 2 to 3 weeks and kind of, before the end of the month, have that recommendation to say, hey, here's what we think, because we've built a system around, building custom solutions for people.
Yeah.
But it's not just custom solutions for custom solutions' sake. It's, what specific for y'all is going to, drive or move the needle.
Awesome. What does day one look like working with Structify? So I say yes to you today and say, okay, Monday is in 3 days. Let's start Monday. That's day one. What does day one look like?
Well, obviously the happiest day of your life, right? So day one is we're going to send someone from our team to go to your shop, right? At least one person, oftentimes more than that. And they're going to come, and I always try to tell the teams, like, arrive early, right? Try to be, as close to the first person as you can, and understand, right? So understand the business before you show up. Come with that set of, all right, here's what we need to connect to systems-wise. We're going to have a bunch of questions to talk with certain folks in the shop and say, hey, looking at all the data that, we see here, we've got a pretty good picture of how things work. But everybody knows that there are those 3 key folks in the back, right? It might be, Barbara, who's working with some machines that are really, really old and legacy that may or may not be replaced in the next 5 years. We've been saying that for a while. It might be Tim, who's doing some stuff in the finance department, and, he understands a lot more about things that you can't see in the data. It might be, like the sales director. So talking with those key people to get that nuance in and understand, all right, we have these questions based on what we've seen already. We're going to hit the ground rolling by saying, let's go and capture that institutional knowledge that people, from a workforce crisis perspective, the reason it's a crisis is once that institutional knowledge walks out the door, holy crap, how are you going to make anything, right?
Yep.
That's like a big fear. So that's been, day one is like, everybody knows you have those key folks, right? How can we kind of be sponges and really targetedly capture, some of that information?
Yeah.
And that's going to feed into the blueprint. So what we're focused on doing there is taking, hey, key people who know key things, let's capture that. And that's going to inform that blueprint. So that's what day one's really all about. It's that institutional knowledge.
Awesome. All right. As we wrap up here, if you had 18 to 20 seconds with a manufacturer to convey the value of what you do, what would you say?
This has got to be the hardest question. As you can tell, I'm a little long-winded. The first thing that we do is we help people find a path to ROI for their AI transformation. And then we go and build a system that addresses it and is maintainable over time. And I would probably add into that and say, we'll find you that ROI or your money back, right? Like, It's like no BS, that's the thing that we're focused on.
That was like 14 seconds. That was well done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say the other piece too is, we give folks access to like top tier AI talent to build something custom that works for their business and give them that foundation. So that way they can maintain it over time and they can build stuff, and turn their team into top tier AI talent and top tier AI experts. So that's kind of what we're doing is we're sending people, transferring that knowledge, capturing institutional knowledge, and, making them AI superstars.
Love it.
Like the last piece that I would say, if I was to like do like the last thing, is we help capture that institutional knowledge, right? It doesn't go walking out the door. We put that into a system so that way you're going to be able to run your business, get folks up to speed, in a way that doesn't involve having 3 key people or 15 key people that know the details to actually get stuff done.
Awesome. What is the future that you're building towards? Like, what does that 5-year horizon look like for you?
So kind of 5 years from now, we kind of have 3 key, like, things that we're working towards. But the North Star really is like make American manufacturing badass, right? Like make people understand like that this industry is super kick-ass and get folks excited and fired up about it.
Yeah.
And so we do that through, a couple different ways. Our campus ambassador program, our team going out into industry, sharing these stories more broadly.
Yeah.
Posting like job boards for people to find opportunities, grant lists, like all these things that, just get people excited, make change happen. So I think like that's one of the things. Really what I would say kind of from a like 5-year perspective, like what we want to do is we want to have like the best stories of like AI transformation come from like the heartland of the country, right? From the backbone of the economy.
Yeah.
Take that, I guess coastal, elitism basically.
Yeah.
And like take the good pieces of the technology and go and apply that to folks and let them have those success stories. So I think really it's about how can we, give back to the, industries that like built this country up. And so what we're doing is we're saying, hey, how can we help you guys go through successful AI transformation? How can we get you guys access to top tier AI talent? How can we get young people excited about this industry? How can we serve y'all?
Awesome. Ronak, what are you proud of most?
I'm really proud of our team. I would say, like, if I was to pick one thing, we've got just an exceptional group of people. When I started the company, right, one of those founding things that I said was, how can I basically turn my time from spending it with, tons of folks, in this corporate setting to like spending it with people that matter a ton, who care a ton, who are super smart, super humble, super genuine. And the fact that we've been able to grow and kind of keep that at the forefront and everyone that joins is just truly, I mean, not just some of the smartest people that but just like they care, they're super humble, they're super collaborative. Like truly it's a blessing. So I think consider myself very lucky and very proud of the team that we have. And so any chance I get, I'll definitely brag on them. So
that's awesome. All right, last question. And it's, you've got to complete my sentence, okay? Structify exists because blank.
There's so many good answers here. Structify exists because we don't want the industries that built this country to get left behind in the next technological leap.
That was awesome. Well done. Thank you.
Appreciate it. No, thank you.
All right, folks, that was Ronak Gandhi, founder of Structify. And I have to tell you, I walked away from that conversation when we did in person super fired up. Ronak is living proof that there's a whole generation of young people who don't see manufacturing as dull, dirty, and or dangerous. They see it for what it is, the backbone of this country, and they want to help it win. If you want to learn more about what Ronak and his team are building, go check them out at structify.com and connect with Ronak on LinkedIn. And like I mentioned at the top of the show, this episode was indeed part of a paid partnership with Structify, and it's one that I am proud to be a part of. If this conversation has resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, please, please, please do me a favor and share it with somebody. Somebody who thinks this industry got left behind. Somebody who's trying to figure out where AI fits on the floor, or somebody who needs to hear that the heartland still kicks ass. And while you're at it, rate and review the show wherever you're listening. It's not for my ego. It's not for Ronak's ego. It's because there's a funky algorithm that rockets this show up the chart every time somebody likes or rates and reviews the show. I do this show because I love the industry and I love the people in it. And your rating is how more of those people who I love find the show. So this has been the Manufacturing Culture Podcast, a little different show than usual. I'm Jim Mayer. Keep telling your story. Keep making things. We'll see you next time.